Coming up next.
Main base of the tree are your thoughts, and that's the conscious ability of your mind. The
Mhm.
others are your subconscious parts. So to really break it down for people, is subconscious, most powerful part of your two minds. It's what's on automatic and it has no filter. So it's really important that you are cognizant of the environment that you find yourself in
Mm.
because it does not know what not to bring in and
Mm.
what not to interpret. And it backs up into a library of the significant emotional events. Okay. And the belief that forms is like, I'll give you an example. I had major trauma when I was a little kid. The trauma was my father told me that if my sister died, it would be my fault. At
Oh,
that moment of trauma, I know that's chapter one of In Faith I Thrive. At that moment of trauma, there was doubt that showed up, and the belief that formed was I do not trust myself to make the right decision.
welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast, where the chains of fixing and striving are broken and joy is rediscovered in Christ. You are here because you know there's more for you, a life beyond addiction's chaos, rooted in God's peace and promises. This is the place where Christian women like you learn to release the weight of fixing and striving and instead lean into God's strength to create a home filled with love, grace, and hope. She is clothed with strength and dignity. Proverbs 31:25. That's you. You may not feel like it yet, but you are stronger than you know. And God has so much more for you than carrying someone else's addiction. Here, we'll uncover how to set healthy boundaries with love and a little humor. Find resilience and grace in the messy moments of life. Celebrate small victories and embrace joy like never before. Lean into God's promises for restoration and strength because He's not done with your story or your loved ones. This is your invitation to rise up, embrace your worth in God's kingdom, and take back what's been stolen by addiction, your peace, your joy, your future. Your faith is the foundation, and your boundaries are the bridge, and God's truth is your guide. I'm Tanya Gioia, your host and fellow traveler on this journey through the chaos of addiction. I'm here to cheer you on, equip you with tools that work, and share the truth that's changed my life. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Together, we'll uncover how to create safe, loving space for healing, starting with your own heart and home. By setting boundaries, trusting God's plan, and embracing His truth, you can reclaim your joy, your peace, and your family's future. Then you will be able to stand firm for your family and legacy as a kingdom daughter, a woman who can laugh at the days to come, knowing her identity is secure in Christ. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and get comfortable. Let's walk this journey together. We're about to take back what's been stolen, create a safe, healing space for you and your family, and rediscover the joy God has waiting for you. Welcome to the Faith Over Addiction podcast. I am Tanya Gioia, and that's one of the things we're going to be talking about today, joy during grief. I have Sylvia Worsham with me, who is also a fellow podcaster. So I want everybody to go over and tap on Release Doubt, Reveal Purpose by Sylvia. Not right now, after the podcast. But welcome, Sylvia. My understanding is you've been doing this a little bit of time and you have a lot to share with us. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast, Tanya. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm in Austin, Texas. I'm a spiritual transformative coach. I've been certified with the John Maxwell team since 2017.
Mm.
But my first act was not in coaching or mentoring. It was in corporate America and pharmaceutical sales. So it's a totally different ballgame. And it wasn't until I nearly died in 2012 and had to understand the value of surrender to God that I shifted my lens from wanting significance by the amount of money I was earning in a high paying job to turning that significance around on its head and allowing God to guide me into the mission I live in today, which is as a spiritual transformative coach, I've written books. I had my best-selling book released last year in September called In Faith I Thrive, Finding Joy Through God's Master Plan. And in it, I guide people like I guide people in my coaching practice. I guide them out of their fear-based belief systems, which we all have, because we all have had experiences in programming and modeling from parents and generational trauma that we've carried on and took on ourselves. And unfortunately, when we do that, we operate from that space. And so these books, the podcast, everything has been to kind of gear people out of that fear-based belief system that they find themselves in, especially after change, after major crossroads, and helping them step into joy in the journey, because we know that the journey is going to be full of conflict and circumstances that are beyond our control, grief, addiction, all these things that are very tough to handle in life. So I never say joy or journey to joy. It's rather joy in the journey. And that's one of the masterminds that I conduct. It's a 6-week mastermind. And in this space is where I kind of guide women, particularly women between the ages of 30 and 60, to go ahead and understand who they are at their core. Because sometimes when we leave marriages or as nurturers and people that love our families, we tend to put each other last. We don't really know ourselves anymore. And so, enjoying the journey, I help them rediscover their value system, their limits, their boundaries, the vision of the life that they want, establish that authentic space. Because from that space is where we can meet God in the present moment. Because where fear takes us is in the future and the past. And so that's why we stay stuck in those cycles of whatever it is for you. It could be your fear, your doubt. So that's why my podcast is called Release Doubt, Reveal Purpose, because it's a journey towards your divine soul's purpose. I guide people towards their light, towards their divine purpose. I do this through my books, through the podcast, through my speaking engagements, through the masterminds that I do. But it came at a really high price because for years I stayed caged into my own fear and doubt. And I didn't trust myself to step into my light. And God showed me differently. Once I started to invite him into my world daily, surrendering to him daily. That was a hard one for someone like me, coming from the super high achieving corporate environment I was in. I worked for Pfizer. So you can imagine coming from that environment, becoming a stay-at-home parent, which is what God did to kind of like break me from that spell, and then start chiseling out those elements that I had tacked on there for years. He said, You don't need this. You don't need this. Why are you carrying this? This isn't yours. But it took that time and God's timing, which I know most of us struggle with because we want it now. We want change now. We want to step into our light now. Well, sometimes God takes us through these journeys, not because he wants to hurt us or anything, but because he needs, as a parent, to teach us lessons that will equip us for what's coming next in our journey. And that's really what I guide people to do. I guide them towards their light and their divine purpose and their who they were meant to be before all the trauma and modeling and programming blackened their path. So that's who I am at my core. I'm a mom, I'm a wife. I've got 2 kiddos based out of Austin, Texas. One is 10, the other one's 20. Two
Wow.
marriages, 2 marriages. Um, and I have a beautiful dog that has been resting behind me the whole day, not making a peep. So he knows better. When I'm interviewing, I was like, do not speak, do not bark. My daughter's like in my bedroom right now. I'm like, do not speak, do not talk. I'm just kidding. I mean,
Oh,
it's life. After the
absolutely.
pandemic, you would see people cross, and it's like, it
Yeah.
is what it is. It's life.
Well, tell
Um,
us more about the fear part. I mean, when you left Pfizer, when you needed to surrender to God, what fears were you experiencing?
well, like most people, the fear of the unknown. When I'm someone that had a trauma early on in my life, and from that trauma developed a pattern of behavior of security seeker. And so I sought security in my circumstances. When you seek security in your circumstances, it's very hard for you to surrender because,
Mm.
in essence, you're surrendering control to
Mm-hmm.
God.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of Christians, I'm non-denominational Christian now, but I grew up Catholic because my parents are Mexican. When my father came to this country in 1967, he he wanted to give us a better life, but he was finishing his medical residency in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted us to keep our culture, keep our religion, but we, in Christianity, we don't really understand relationship at times. We understand belief in God, but Satan believes in God. So we know that, or Satan wouldn't exist. Trusting him is a whole different animal. It's,
Yes.
it is, it is releasing that control that we hold on tightly because
Mm.
we think that if we let go, we're going to lose ourselves. We're not going to be able to find our way. I don't know what the true fear is, but to me, it was the fear of the unknown, not seeing my path before me. You won't, if you saw the path that God sees, you wouldn't step in there because sometimes, I mean, seriously,
Because it
think
would
about
be too scary. It
it.
would be
It
too
would be
scary to
terrifying.
step
Where would
in
I
there.
find the strength and the courage to do this?
Yeah.
What we don't realize when we invite God into our journeys is that that strength appears out of nowhere from one day to the next.
But you have to step out first, right?
Yes,
It
yes.
doesn't show up before you step out.
You have to stay obedient to the prompting in your heart. There's a chapter I wrote in one of the first, actually in the last collaboration I did before releasing the second edition to In Faith I Thrive. It was called Show Your Work, and the title of the chapter was Promptings of the Heart.
Mm.
God will prompt you. Your job is to act on the prompting timely in
Okay,
the
but
time that
wait,
he's prompting you.
we got to back up even further. If you are in a high powered career, if you are living somebody else's life because you are trying to save them, the person dealing with addiction, the person who is living her children's lives or something like that, how does she even begin to pause long enough to hear the promptings?
So here's what we do. We daily silence the outside noise. That means no cell phones. Take a
Mm.
moment, maybe 20 minutes. If 20 minutes is too long, start with
Mm.
minutes a day, a minute. I don't care what it takes. Start small and build up. And once you master the minute, then you move on to 3, then to 5, and you build it. If you're a 5, 10, 15 kind of person, then you start with 5 minutes. And every day, consistently, whether you feel like it or not, invite God in.
And what does that look like? How do I know that I'm inviting God?
You're talking to him, just like I'm talking to you. You just talk to him. You say, God, I need you. I need your strength. I know you know what's happening. You know my heart. You know what I need. Please guide me. Please guide my words, my thoughts, my actions. Please, I'm ready to listen. And pick a time in your day where you are alert,
Mm.
where your mind is not cluttered. You want to declutter your mind. So there's several ways of doing this. You can journal.
Mm-hmm.
He's found that very therapeutic. But I'm an author, so that, obviously. Praying, meditating is a big one.
Yeah.
And meditation, I didn't know how to do because I have ADD, and to sit still, it did not feel good. But in 2020, my anxiety was going through the roof and it was starting to impact my parenting and
Mm.
starting to project onto my kids as, anxiety, and it was not good. And I wanted to stop it. So I started, like I'm telling you, 5 minutes. I just sat there and I had Insight Timer was an app I used, which I use to this day. And I just picked whatever spoke to my soul. And you know when something speaks to you because it's jumping out of the page at you. And you just start there and you start
What
small.
about when the thoughts are like, so they could get in trouble, they could die if I'm not there to take care of it? when you have that savior complex and the thoughts won't slow down and you don't believe God has got a handle on this.
That's a tough one because they stem from belief systems. They stem from belief systems. And so, really, the first step is identifying what significant emotional events in your life triggered a belief in you. So,
Mm.
I'm going to share this with you because I'm going to break it down. This is how I break it down in my coaching. So, this is my coaching tree. So, I always want people to picture the most beautiful tree they've ever seen in their life. And I always have them close their eyes because you really need to incorporate the power of the imagination. The mind is very, very powerful. It doesn't know the difference whether you're imagining or it's actually real. So this is where you can reprogram your mind. Okay, so here we go. When you look at a tree, you see the soil, right? Because it's planted in soil. Well, the soil is your significant emotional events. Now, these are your good, bad, and ugly moments in time. And we all have them. When we
Mm-hmm.
married, when we had our children, when we met our significant other, when, they overdosed the first time,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. All of that feeds into the roots of that tree. The roots of the tree are your belief systems because from this space, this is where your ego is comprised of. Your self image is comprised of the beliefs that you believe to be true about yourself. And they usually stem from these significant emotional events. So at the moment of trauma, at the moment of anything, there is a feeling because we're emotional human beings. There's a
Mm-hmm.
feeling that's going to form at the moment of trauma. And what attaches itself to the feeling are the triggers, the patterns of behavior, the habits. You form habits around patterns of behavior, like the patterns of thinking and reactions and actions, right? So the feeling is primal. It's at the center of the tree, but the main base of the tree are your thoughts, and that's the conscious ability of your mind. The
Mm-hmm.
others are your subconscious parts. So to really break it down for people is subconscious, most powerful part of your two minds. It's what's on automatic and it has no filter. So it's really important that you are cognizant of the environment that you find yourself in
Mm.
because it does not know what not to bring in and
Mm.
what not to interpret. And it backs up into a library of the significant emotional events. Okay. And the belief that forms is like, I'll give you an example. I had major trauma when I was a little kid. The trauma was my father told me that if my sister died, it would be my fault. At
Wow.
that moment of trauma, I know that's chapter one of In Faith I Thrive. At that moment of trauma, there was doubt that showed up, and the belief that formed was I do not trust myself to make the right decision.
Ooh. Ooh.
Okay.
How old were you?
7
Which means how many years did you struggle with making decisions?
decades, decades, because I'm 50,
Sounds
I'm
about
about to
right.
turn 51. So beliefs promote that thought.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing really is, aside from decluttering your mind, is identifying what belief systems are driving this.
So how do they even begin to identify the beliefs? I mean, you extrapolating that isn't what I would have thought of. I would have thought of my responsibility is to save her. So you either help me or get out of my way. That's one of my belief systems. You either
Yeah,
help me or get out of my way.
yeah.
So that has been
I learned the
start.
lesson of responsibility because
Yeah.
there's always something good that comes out of something bad and tragic.
Yes,
And
there's both.
so my first chapter is titled I Am Responsible because God teaches me the lesson of responsibility early on through that tragedy, right?
Overly responsible.
Overly, yeah. I take over my siblings' responsibility. Like I take over as their parent
Mm.
because what happened, the therapist explained later, like a decade later, your father passed on his responsibility, parental responsibility onto you without realizing. It's one comment. And look
Mm.
what one comment can do to a child and to lack of development in the brain and lack of being able to block that because they don't as kids they don't have the conscious ability to say, that is not right.
Right.
That's not right. And nobody told me Hey, your dad was just scared. Hey, your dad comes from a highly abusive background, physical, emotional. All of this comes from somewhere. It's not just
Right.
out of the blue.
Well, as a
So,
child, you don't have that filter. You don't have the ability to filter through that. You
no,
didn't have a parent who was able to help you filter through it at the
no. And even parents, they have their own trauma that they're carrying and they don't even know it. They're not aware of how they're projecting the trauma onto their parenting because
Yeah.
they don't do the personal development work that we do. I'm a coach, I'm a certified. I didn't know this until I became a coach, how powerful the subconscious mind was and how his response was an automatic response from his fear of losing his other daughter.
Yes. Well, and you're also a salesperson. So you sales is such an interesting space because it also teaches you about the subconscious, about what people think and what they bring in and how they look at the world. And you're trying to match and mirror and figure that out. We do some of that matching and mirroring to our parents because they're our parents, but we don't stop and think whether it is worthwhile for us or not.
Yeah. So, I mean, so going with the coaching tree, just to kind of give you a basis of it. So the thoughts are there. That's the conscious ability of your mind, but that's where choices and attitude also reside. You know, we have choices we can make on a daily basis, and sometimes we choose wrong, right? We all do
Mm,
it. The thoughts promote the feelings, and we know that the feelings are attached to patterns of behavior. And in my book, In Faith I Thrive, I detail 7 patterns of behavior I have encountered in my coaching journey. One of
mhm,
them I shared, security seeker. You have the achiever,
mhm,
people that either avoid pain by achieving, or they move towards pleasure and actually do the work, roll up their sleeves and do the inner work and get out of there, right? So, 7 patterns of behavior. And we form habits around those patterns of behavior. We do. Every time we react in a certain way, that is a pattern of behaving, and we have formed a habit. And the mind keeps all of that in the subconscious part. And so when that feeling shows up, all of this spitfires. And so the branches of the tree are either, if you're on the left side of the tree, which is the fear based side, you'll have a reaction. Because when we have a big feeling, we don't just keep it inside, we actually do something with that feeling. Sometimes we react or we act on it. If it's on the loving side, we're acting on it. We're acting on loving someone, grace, joy, all of that.
mm.
And the branches lead to the leaves. The leaves are the results you're currently in. What circumstances do you
What have
currently
you
find yourself?
created
What are
based
you
on those
creating
reactions?
based on those reactions? But more importantly, it all stems from the significant emotional events and belief systems. So if you don't know what those belief systems are, there's so many coaches out there that deal with the present moment. And if you have significant trauma, there's a thing called therapy. And I would highly encourage you to get some help because codependency is very real. And sometimes we want to feel needed by
Yes.
those that have these addictions, but that stems from somewhere in your childhood that
So
your
it
mind
really
knows how to do
isn't
it.
about them because you've got parents, you've even got spouses who are like, if I would just behave this way, then everything would be okay.
No.
And why is that not going to work? Why is that not going to work
The
99?
only, well, here's the thing, even if this is the only way, there's so many ways of getting to a result. So many different choices you can make. Not inviting God into the mix is a very big mistake
Mm,
because God knows every wound. He knows your parents' wounds and your grandparents' wounds. He knows where that belief originated from.
hmm.
Because believe it or not, and I'm going to say this, I think some people are going to be like, what? One of the therapies I went through years ago with my son who has some mental health issues, the coach we were working with shared with us that DNA trauma can pass through the DNA. So
Mm, the
trauma,
generational wounding. Yeah.
yes, can pass through your DNA. So your mind doesn't know the difference.
Mm,
And so it believes that you encountered that trauma. So even if Like let's say your family was a Holocaust survivor. That's going to pass on through you. And your nervous system is going to feel like you're a survivor, like you actually went through that trauma. And all that came out of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why if I only did this, it's very limited. You need to get the help that you need, especially if you have been stuck in circumstances for far too long. That means that there's belief systems at the core of it that are just keeping you stuck. And how many years are going to go by until you finally realize that you're trying to do this on your own? You can't. And if
Mm.
God has sent certain people in your life and you've said no because of this or that, it's like that joke, the person that's like waiting for help to arrive and he sends a boat and a helicopter and then he gets to the gates of heaven. God, where were you? I was expecting you. And goes, what do you want from me? I sent you a boat. I sent you
I
this.
sent you all
I
of
sent you
that.
all this help and you didn't listen and you
Well,
didn't hear.
one of the things you just walked into was, so people may have been in your life to help you heal this, and you did a form of self-sabotage by turning them away.
Yes, because it was too painful or you didn't want to deal with the pain in the moment. And so you refused to listen to God. He has faith in you. He's omnipotent. Why would he prompt you to do something before you're ready for it?
But that one runs into my question of, how do you know it's God's prompting?
Well, that's a good question. See, I actually detailed this in Faith I Thrive because my editor was like, I want to know more. Like, how do you know it's a prompting?
Right.
Like, okay, well, here, let's break it down. And he shows up differently for everybody, but
Right.
this is the way he shows up for me. I call him God instincts in the book. God
Mm,
instincts, I always say God lives in the gut.
mm,
Those gut instincts that you have,
mm-hmm.
those those eye-opening events, that's God. That's the Holy Spirit saying, watch out. That you're realizing this because I'm sharing this with you. I'm whispering this to you. So that's one way, gut instincts. The other thing is it's a persistent thought that won't leave you alone. It
Mm.
comes out of nowhere.
How do you, I know how I do it, but how do you do that to know whether this is, because we can have persistent thoughts that are not from God. This is our obsessive thinking,
Okay.
our
Well,
obsessive thinking.
does it align with his word and his truth?
And is it patient, kind, good, helpful? Does it align with all the fruits of the spirit as well? Because obsessive thoughts could be like, the chocolate cake is down there, and if I just eat the rest of it, then it's gone, and then I don't have to worry about it again. And you can obsess about that, especially in an ADHD brain. So I love how you say, does it align with his word? Does it align with his truth?
With his
I always
character.
look at with his
With his
character.
character.
But
Yeah.
then we get even deeper. You have to know God's character, because at one point you can look at the God of the Old Testament and go, wait a minute, I'm not sure I want to be part of this
See, and
character.
I think that's a misconception of him because a lot of religions will go into this and say, if you don't do this, you're going to go to hell. If you don't do this, you're a sinner. If you don't do this, that's the religion talking. That's people's interpretation talking. Yes.
Yes.
And when you read his word and you really start to see a pattern, I started to see it in Jeremiah. When I got to the book of Jeremiah, I was like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And he's there
Yes.
constantly. He's so patient. Oh my
Yes.
goodness. Is he patient with the Israelites? I'm like, another God would have already lost his temper and like devoured all of them. I mean, seriously.
And walked away and
And
said,
walked
I'm
away and
done.
said, I'm done with these people. They don't learn. They keep going back to sin. They kept saying, he kept coming back. He kept fulfilling his promise to Abraham constantly, 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 over and over and over again. He gave him so many chances. Holy moly, I like sat there and I was like, I could slap these people. Or like Leah and Rachel, how many times did he say, do not do this? And it was like, don't be a Leah or Rachel. Don't take things into your own hands.
Right. Same with Sarah. And
Same with
then
Sarah.
then he says to her, "But that's my girl." Richard Rohr has a book out called The Tears of Things, or The Tears for Things. And one of the things that struck me about that was he said, there is disorder, and we watch it happen with the Hebrews all the time. There's always disorder. God puts relationship and forgiveness over disorder, but he
Yeah.
still calls disorder disorder. He still calls it out and said, this is not acceptable behavior
Yeah.
when he removes Adam and Eve from the garden, but he doesn't remove himself from Adam and Eve.
No.
And
No, he
that's
doesn't.
where I think we get into the real work of what you're saying about meditation, about being in the word, about this discernment piece, is it does take time to know God's character.
Yeah.
Just like getting to know your children, your mate, your friends, it takes
Time
time.
and consistency, and trust. Like, how do you build trust? Let's go back to sales. How do you build trust? You connect. How do you
Mm,
connect? You talk. Like I'm talking to you.
yeah.
Prayer is just talking to God.
Yes, absolutely.
And nowadays I do it in my car. And you know why I do it in my car? Because nobody knows if I'm talking to somebody on the other side of the line.
I know. I know. We've gotten
So
over
I don't look
that.
crazy anymore, right? Because when my kids were little, they're like, Mom, are you talking to yourself? Are you talking to him again? I go, well, Jesus is right here. I mean, he's always with me. He's constantly with me. Or when my kids would be put to bed, I would say, hey, Vivian, you need to make room for your guardian angel, man. He doesn't fit in this space. Like he's
Uh-huh.
gonna fall off the bed. And so she would make
Right.
room for him. I said, your guardian angel is always around you. He's or he or she, I don't know who you picture or visualize, but I do. I talk to my guardian angel too. I know they're around. I sense them energetically. I sense when God's around. But my relationship has not always been this close. When I was married and I would attend Catholic church, I would experience the hypocrisy of people in the church. They were the most
Mm,
horrific people coming out of that church. In there, they were praising God and the whole nine yards. I was in my 20s, young, vulnerable, newly married. My first husband was 12 years my senior, and he would act all loving in front of everybody. And then we would get home and he was cold and distant, like
mm.
total, like Jekyll and Hyde. And I turned away from God because I mistakenly believed that that was God, a reflection of God. And I
Mm-hmm.
blamed him for the faults of human beings that are, not perfect. So, and it's a common thing that people do. I experienced some religion trauma. I didn't like it, especially after my divorce. I didn't feel welcome back because
Mm-hmm.
I had gotten divorced. And so I turned away for a little bit. But even in the divorce piece, I felt a pull. My soul felt a pull to connect with him through my writing. So I just started one day. I just made a choice. I said, you know what? I have nothing to lose and everything to
Yeah.
gain. So why am I not going to do this? So I started to write, and oh my goodness, it was the best therapy for me. And I've been journaling for many years. And I started it up again because I turned to just prayer. Because when my father was dying, and he passed away on Father's Day of last year, I had to learn how to surrender daily to God.
Mm,
And that was a lesson I learned. I had zero control over the circumstances. His
yeah.
tumor had come back, and it was a tumor that had developed because of his exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And I was never bitter towards God. I didn't question why he was taking my father. I didn't see it as him taking my dad because my dad had made a choice to go to Vietnam. When he
Mm,
walked into the visa office, they asked him, the very first question was, are you willing to fight? And he said
wow.
he intuitively knew that if he answered no, he was going to be denied the visa. So he said yes.
Yeah.
And they didn't want him because they needed soldiers. Of course, they were sending everybody in those years, right?
Mhm.
Um, they wanted him because he was a general surgeon and they needed medical doctors. So
Right.
he was put in as an officer. and medical doctor. And so every time that he cut into an American soldier's body, of course, he's going to be exposed to whatever they're exposed to. And being bombed constantly, they get exposed to all of that radiation, all those things, all those chemicals. It's going to change them. All those guys from 1967 to 69 that were there had meningiomas and Parkinson's disease, the majority of them.
Mm, mm,
And they
mm.
done the US government had a whole committee investigating those deaths, and those.
How did you surrender that instead of trying to fix it? Because in the addiction world, we're often trying to fix it. How can I get him to the right surgeon? How can I get him on the right pill? How can I talk to Congress? How can I do this? How can I save this? How did you do the surrender piece?
The surrender piece was the closer I got to God, the easier it was to surrender.
Mm,
Because I had already learned to surrender when I faced that medical crisis in 2012, when I
mm-hmm,
had 6 doctors come into my room and basically tell me I had a 80% chance of dying.
mm-hmm.
You're out of options. Your only option is God. When someone's dying, you're out of options completely.
Now,
And
he still did die. You
he's
didn't, but he did. Your marriage wasn't saved. I'm sure you prayed about that as well. How do you do it when God says, no, this is not the plan I have for you?
I actually trust him so much because I have reflected back on all the times that he was there for me,
Mm-hmm.
that and I found the thread of everything happening in my favor.
How can you see that? So I'm thinking of the woman who has the child who has been through a couple rehabs, is trying on some levels, but she also knows that one little tipping point, one little anxiety, one little lost job, and boop, over he goes again. How do you surrender that person? How do you surrender? It's really surrendering the dream.
Yes. And I've had to surrender the dream, and it's not easy. Believe me, it's not. It's not an easy journey. It's not for the faint of heart, but it is doable. The desire he puts in your heart is so powerful. You've got to remove the layers. Your job is to remove the layers that you're responsible for.
How do
The
you know
wound,
what you're responsible for?
well, good question. All of them. You got to start somewhere. So
Yeah.
you you may see the mountain right in front of you, and whatever that pull is to do, you do it, even if it's hard. Just you're not going to lose anything more. So, I mean, if you've been doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome, why not
Crazy.
listen? I mean, that's crazy. Why don't you just try this? I mean, you're trying everything else. Why
Yes.
not try this? Try this and keep at it the way with the same passion, the same drive that you've done to stay stuck in misery. Why not try doing that baby step until you master it and then you increase, kind of like it's small steps. You're not trying to go for the big win. Nobody does that.
So the woman who is struggling right now, she knows the child is addicted. She knows husband has pornography issues. She knows this is happening with parent or whoever. What does she do today?
She turns to God. She
How?
just talks to him. She tells him, you know what he's doing. You know everything. If this is in your will, make it very clear to me. Help me understand what my next step is. That's
Mm,
all you do. That's all you can do. Even in the silence, he hears your pleas.
yes. And we know from Sarah that even if you say the wrong thing, he's still there. I mean, Sarah
Yeah.
turns away and laughs at God that
Well, look at
she's going to have
Hannah.
a child.
Look at Hannah. Hannah was mocked because of her infertility for years.
Yeah.
For years and years, she's mocked and like laughed at. And look, you can't have a child, blah, blah, blah. And what she doesn't stop having faith. Job teaches us that. It's like the book that scares the living daylights out of all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But Job taught us that faith is what wins. I mean,
And
he
is
had
rewarded.
friends and it's rewarded,
Yes.
but it's not in our timing.
Yes. I think
It's in
that's the
his.
hardest thing
It's in
is
his.
we want to push it and make our timing. Sylvia, tell us where we can find you, where we can find more of this wisdom, what book you're working on right now, and when it's going to come out.
I'm actually not working on books right now because I really want the message of In Faith I Thrive to really resonate with listeners and readers. How you can find me is on my webpage. That's how you can connect with all my social media sites as well, because I'm Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. On Facebook and LinkedIn, I mean, Facebook and Instagram, I'm at Coach Sylvia Worsham,
Mm-hmm.
and then LinkedIn, just Sylvia Worsham. So I'm easy to find. But my webpage is www.sylviaworsham.com, spelled SYLV as in Victor, IAWORSHAM.com.
Awesome. Sylvia, what's a last comment you want to leave for listeners who are really struggling with seeing the joy in the journey?
There are pockets of joy along your journey. You may miss them entirely if you're so focused on the problem in front of you. So get back to center, find your center. He's your center.
Yes.
Stay in the present moment and thoroughly enjoy that moment.
Amen. Sylvia, thank you so much for being here.
I've loved every minute of it. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Faith Over Addiction podcast. Remember, nothing changes until something changes. Today is your day to step out in faith and make a difference. You are a daughter of the King, a woman who can spark incredible ripple effects of hope and healing, not just in your own life, but in your family, your community, and God's kingdom. If this episode encouraged you, bless someone else by sharing it. Send it to a friend who needs a little hope or post it on Instagram and tag me. I'd love to hear what resonated most with you. And hey, if you're ready to reclaim your God-given identity and create a safe, loving space for yourself and those you care about, let's talk. Book a quick call with me today, and I'd love to hear your story and help you take the next step. Oh, and don't forget to head over to Apple Podcasts, search for Faith Over Addiction, and leave me a review. Your feedback not only makes my day, but helps other women find this podcast and step into freedom too. You are strong, you are loved, and the joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Until next time, keep walking boldly into the life God has for you.